Hey, Matt, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Scratch Golfers Mindset podcast. How are you today?
Good, Paul. How's it going, man? It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah,
fantastic, and I am excited for this
yeah,
conversation. We're going to talk about
me
your
too.
golf journey, but your caddying journey. I love, from one entrepreneur to another, how we can really, I'm sure we'll get on a tangent there, just the overlap
Yeah,
and parallels between golf, entrepreneurship, and that beautiful game of life. But I always love to get a
right.
great foundation going for our listeners. So please dive in. Tell us about your golf journey from when it began to where and what
Mm.
it looks like today.
Yeah, for sure. Man, golf journey. Okay, so I was a baseball player and general athlete growing up, but baseball was my first love. So I didn't even think about golf very much for a while. My dad was a recreational golfer. I remember one time when I was like 10 years old, he took me out. We were on summer vacation. And I thought, man, I can hit a baseball. I could hit a golf ball. And I could barely, make contact with the ball. It's like, this sucks. This is hard. I don't like it. So had that one outing. But then I think a few years later, I was like 14. He took me and my sister and mom out to do just family lessons with our local pro, who we may talk about later. He's amazing. And, we did these lessons for a few weeks and I got totally hooked at that point. Like, because he helped me hit the ball a little more solid, and all of a sudden I was like, I am in. I remember that summer I made my buddy and I got into it, and I made my mom drop me off at either that golf course or a little local par 3, like every day, it feels like, whenever I wasn't playing baseball, right? So started getting into it, but decided that I even thought about converting, like playing high school golf or whatever. I don't know if I probably was good enough at that point, but I decided to play baseball as long as I could because I just kind of knew like this has a shelf life, team sport. I'm not going to be able to do it forever the same way as golf is like a forever deal. So I kind of put it on the back burner, played baseball through high school and tried in college, didn't really get there. But so in college, I started to kind of make the transition.
Okay.
Went to a small school, Westmont College in Santa Barbara, really small liberal arts school. Didn't have a golf team or anything, but we started a golf club.
Okay.
So I got, some seniors. I was a sophomore, got in, started doing that. Was the first time I played in a real golf tournament, that wasn't like a scramble or a local event or just like out with my dad or buddies or whatever. It was like, there's pressure. This is real, and I didn't do that well, but I loved it. Actually, I did really badly. It was pretty funny. There's kind of a funny story there. Maybe I'll tell it. All right. So my first tournament ever, we're in Southern California. We go down outside of San Diego. I'm a sophomore in college and get on the first tee and actually hit a decent shot. But from there, the round was just brutal, right? It was just tough. I think I shot 99. In fact, I know I shot 99 because it's interesting how it worked the next day. So I just lots of doubles, bogeys, double bogeys, scrape it around, get in. Okay. And my whole team, we're all like hacks. So we're all on the earliest tee times the second day, right? We're all teeing off at 7 a.m. But I decide just to hit my 3-iron off the tee that second day instead of driver because I was getting in trouble off the tee. So I go around the front 9 and shoot 39. All right. So massive improvement. But we were up super early and I, just didn't know how to think about this stuff. So we make the turn, we keep going. I'm feeling pretty good. So I hadn't really had much breakfast and I didn't really eat anything at the turn. And then I was like, I'm hitting the ball pretty good. So I pulled out my driver. So on the back 9, just everything starts to fall apart. And if you've played much golf, you've had those times where all of a sudden the wheels just fall off, So I'm back to making bogeys, then doubles, and just kind of hacking it around again, my attitude is starting to fall. Just, it's a struggle. I get on the 17th tee and it's a par 4 up the hill, creek, fence, road, OB on the right-hand side. Okay. Not a real hard hole, but like definitely can't miss, right? Well, I slice one, OB, re-tee it, slice it again out of bounds. Okay, crap. Go back, re-tee it with 3-iron this time. Still kind of heel chunk slice it out. So I have to hit my 4th shot. I'm hitting 7 off the tee and finally get one in play. End up making a 13, make triple on 18, and I end up shooting 60 on the back 9. So I go to turn in the scorecard. Remember, I shot 99 the first day. And now I shot 99 the second day, but it was 39.60.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, wow, all right. I think I learned a lot. I don't know, but it didn't discourage me. I was just like, that sucks. I don't know. So we went through college, did that golf club for a couple of years, got out of school, was trying to figure out my life and career. My dad was a business owner. I ended up back in Oregon, where I'm from, working for him, kind of knowing that wasn't really what I wanted to do long term, but I was just trying to figure stuff out. And one day, a few months into that, I called my buddy up, who's an older guy who had been like local, guy that we hung out at the golf course, kind of a mentor type, big brother sort of dude. Called him up, was like, hey, Al, what's going on? Let's, you want to play some golf or whatever? It was springtime. He's like, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm down at Pebble caddying for the summer. And I was just like, you are doing what? And I don't know, somehow I just instantly knew I wanted to do that. Like right as he said it, I was like, I totally want to do that. Can you hook me up? Whatever. He's like, yeah, I can. Yeah, for sure. I'll hook you up. But they had just done their hiring for the year. So it was like, I had to wait that whole year. Right. I got in touch with them. Like, yeah, contact us next, early next year, and we'll get you in the system and process it. So I go, this is 2003 that this is all happening. So spring of 2004, I'm like chomping at the bit. I go through the system. I'm like bugging him all the time. He's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Anyway, so I get down there, go down in, I don't know, March or April to go do my interview. And like, it's a group interview. It was actually pretty easy. And we do, do an on-course test, and boom, I'm in. I'm going to caddy at Pebble. I remember I don't know, are you familiar with Pebble Beach at all? Yeah. So they held the interview in the lodge in a conference room upstairs, like overlooking the 18th green and the bay and stuff, Carmel, Stillwater Cove there. And I just remember being so pumped, like so happy. And I walk out on the lawn out behind the 18th green and call my dad. And I'm like, hey, I did it. I'm doing it. I think he'd been a little, like, what are you doing? But he was also pumped because he's a big golfer and, loves Pebble and loves it all. And it didn't take long. He was like excited for it. So yeah, I'm 25 years old, moving back down to California to caddy and just to have an adventure, and it was definitely not like a career trajectory thing. It was just like a life thing. And I was so excited. I just knew it was something that I would regret if I didn't do. And I knew I wanted to do it. And spent the next couple of years down there. And I learned a bunch, actually. It was not only was it just super fun, because everybody's on vacation. Everybody's there to have a good time. It's not super serious golf for the most part. But it's these great courses. It's Pebble, Spyglass, Spanish Bay, like you can't really top it. Great weather most of the time, or really terrible weather, which is also fun. But I also learned that the type of work I like to do, which is this coaching, consulting, advising, and so that really helped me kind of as I moved back into my career later. But then on the golf side, I got to work with a really great pro down there, Patrick Parrish. He worked at Poppy Hills, which is near the property there in on the peninsula. And so yeah, I got a lot better at golf. That was kind of when I made the transition from baseball and just whatever random athlete to golfer. He was the first person to put my swing on film. And I always kind of have had a nice tempo and kind of a smooth move. But when I saw myself on film, I was like disgusted by it. I don't know if you ever had that experience. But yeah, he started to show me the game, a little more broken down. My original teacher had been great for a foundation, and then this was getting a little more technical, that type of thing. And so, I mean, are we doing good here? I can kind of just bring you right up to date. Yeah,
please. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is about 20 years ago. So I played a ton. I was doing something golf every day, and that was actually my mindset. I was like, I want to get better, and so I'm going to do something golf related every day. Caddying counted, right? Because I was thinking my way around the course all the time, thinking for somebody else. That helped my mental approach a bunch. and sort of emotional regulation and that kind of thing, but definitely like looking at the course more strategically. And then I wanted to chip, putt, hit balls, or play or something, every day if I could. So I pretty much accomplished that. Played a lot of golf, got a lot better, ended up coming back to Oregon eventually and kind of moving into a professional, trying to figure out my professional career. And started getting connected with just golfers, buddies around Portland, Oregon area. And over the course of the next few years, got plugged into kind of the golf community. Like we knew club pros, and just guys who like to play a lot. So we started playing different events. I started getting into the amateur stuff, like playing in some real tournaments, trying to qualify for the Mid-Am and the Oregon Am. Started playing in Pro-Ams with these club pros sometimes, and got a lot of experience playing like tournament, amateur tournament level golf, which that's a whole nother bump up in ability. Cause I mean, you go from playing casual rounds to playing where there's like you have to play by all the rules and you have to hole out every putt, and if you lose a ball, you're,
There's no
you're counting
breakfast balls either.
There's no, yeah, exactly. You can lip out a 2-footer. It would have been a gimme with your buddies, but like it counts out there. And so I had some high numbers in rounds like that because it's just the pressure is different. The mindset is different. But eventually I started to figure that out and started to play good golf in some of those events and loved it, man. I loved the competition and just that little added, there's a little bit of added pressure, there's something else to it, So I did that a bunch through like kind of the 2010s. And then ended up moving out here to Kansas City, where I live now, in 2017. And golf took a little bit of a back seat for a while. I was kind of focused on some other things. But over the last couple of years, it started to come back around. One of the things that happens, I had kids, so I've got young kids at home. That definitely like automatically puts golf on the back burner. But yeah, the last couple of years, I've had a little more space, a little more time, been able to work on the game a little bit. I've figured out a couple things about my own swing and about the swing in general that have made it much easier to come and go out of like not having a lot of practice and playing time and still being able to play halfway decently, which was always a struggle for me. And so, I don't know, I just played an event on Saturday, actually, and played well, had a great time, played a great course, shot a pretty good score, and I don't know. So here we are. The other piece, I guess, would be teaching. Over the years, I've always enjoyed helping, my buddies out for the most part. I haven't done a lot of formal teaching. I've had some people do a few lessons with me here and there, but yeah, I just enjoy teaching the game and relaying, mental approach, especially swing technique. As I've learned it, I like to relate it to other people, anything to help them enjoy golf more. That was the same thing with caddying. It's like, that's the same thing in my game. Playing good golf is way more fun than playing bad golf. Even though you can have fun struggling, not hitting it well, you can have a good time, but it's more fun to play well, right? It's more fun to hit it solid. It's more fun to shoot good scores, right? So helping other people do that is always fun for me.
Dude, what a journey.
Yeah. So there's a lot there kind of condensed into a couple of minutes, but yeah, it's been fun. It's been 30 plus years now since I started out.
Yeah, so I'm going to definitely dig in deeper, unpack some of these milestones and moments you experienced. So take me back to Pebble Beach. You're caddying for a few years there. You're working with, I imagine, golfers of all skill levels and experiences. And yes, the general undertone is vacation, relaxation, and play, which we all need that reminder sometimes, even the most competitive of us. But I'm curious, but particularly reflecting back now with all the knowledge and experience you have, what are some of the common mental game downfalls you witnessed in the, let's call it the typical player there who was at Pebble Beach?
Well, core strategy, like just always yanking driver, just pulling driver on every tee because you hit driver off the tee, right? Well, that's just not right. That's not the best way to go about it. And it may be the most fun when you pipe one, obviously. That's, there's a couple of the greatest feelings in golf. One is smoking a drive, burying a long putt is a good one. Hitting a really crisp iron shot is up there. But when you when you center up a drive, it's pretty much top of the list. So it's hard to fault somebody for wanting to do that. But if you want to shoot your best score, you gotta think about the hole backwards, right? Like, what
Mhm.
shot do I want to be hitting into this hole? What shot is going to set me up for that the best? Also, if you're playing, not the tips, which most of us are playing whites or blues most of the time, driver, if you hit it relatively, if you're hitting it 250, 260, something like that, a lot of times you're hitting it into part of the course that starts to narrow down, right? You got fairway bunkers or you got whatever's going on. You're not hitting the biggest target. So your margin of error, I think that's like the phrase I would use. Are you
Hmm.
managing your margin of error with the shots you select, with the clubs you choose?
Ooh.
Because I was thinking about this. Golf is a physical sport. I know that everybody's like, golf is 90% mental, and it is, but your mental game is there to support your physical swing, right?
Hmm.
Because Iron Byron, the machine that tests clubs and balls and everything, doesn't need a mental game because he makes a perfect swing every time, right? Like, you're still physically hitting the golf ball. So your mentality helps set you up for making a good swing. Yeah. So does that make sense? I mean, that
Yeah.
would be margin of error. Are
It
you managing your margin of error?
it's so timely too, because I believe when all this comes out, it'll be episode six, I think, with what my buddy who's a near scratch golfer, Luke, we were talking about the same thing. It's just so common practice, like choose driver off the tee. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah.
exhilarating.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard to replicate a feeling like that elsewhere in life. Yet we kept jokingly calling it like that's like big drive energy. Like the ego is leading there. And yes, it's fun, but
Yeah.
if you continuously shank your driver, like you're setting yourself up in a position to score poorly. And at the end of the day,
Yeah.
your scorecard does not reflect the number of pretty perfect shots you hit. The
Yeah.
game is to score as low as you can, and you've got to
Right.
be smart with
Right.
iron and course or club selection. So I'm curious, what would you recommend someone who gravitates towards that driver mentality? Like, do you recommend they look at the course and all the course details ahead of time the night before? How should they approach the course and hole management?
Well, yeah, definitely. If you can sort of scope out, what tees you're going to be playing, you can never know exactly what the conditions are going to be. You don't know how the wind's going to be blowing. That all that kind of stuff in the moment has an effect, which is where a good routine comes in,
Mm.
right? Like having a good pre-shot routine. But yeah, I would, if you're playing around that you care about scoring well, there's a difference between we're just going to go out and play, have fun, drink some beers, whatever.
Yeah.
And in that case, just relax, chill out, go hit the ball, and just have a good time with it. But if you're trying to score well, play well, compete, then obviously, yeah, as looking at the hole by hole and trying to create a strategy, or at least like getting an idea of what you want to do on every hole is great. A practice round, if you're really at a competitive level, you're probably playing a practice round, and then that may or may not be part of the whole equation. But yeah, so I've never been a super detailed, like map out everything type of a guy, but I do like to have an idea of what is going on. I think even when you're standing on the tee box, if I use a rangefinder rather than a watch or whatever, because I want to be able to know the distance to absolutely anything, like that post over there, or that tree, or that bunker lip, front or back, or whatever. So I just want to be able to hit anything and know what I'm talking about, or know what I'm dealing with. And so the approach there would be, what is my biggest, well, I guess I would say, is there an advantage, a real advantage to blasting it down there? Like, am I really gaining something? Because sometimes there is. Sometimes actually your trouble is a little closer, and hitting a driver gets you over that, even if you
Mhm.
kind of spray it a little bit bigger target. Well, that's a great play then, um, again, margin of error, right? Increasing your odds.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And like for those of you listening, like this is such phenomenal wisdom, because like what I hear and see all the time is that like When you make a poor ego-led decision on your club selection, driver
Yeah.
over your 5-wood, for example, or your 3-iron, like you may be costing yourself a stroke or two per hole. If you're prone to poor decisions 6 to 10 times around, like do the math. If you wonder why you're stuck
Yeah.
shooting low 90s or high 80s and you aspire to shoot scratch, here's an easy way to likely shave off quite a few strokes without affecting your swing or even talking about pre-shot, post-shot routines or anything.
Right.
It's just simple course management, which comes into slowing down, preparing ahead of time, and
Yep.
making an objective decision,
Yeah.
regardless of how you feel or what your last hole was like, to start the next hole.
Ooh, that's true. Let me bounce back to that idea too in a second, but let me give you a tangible example of what I mean, because course management can kind of be, ethereal, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? Okay, so hole number 11 at Spyglass Hill in Monterey in the peninsula there is a par 5, dogleg right, kind of goes downhill. It's kind of slightly downhill, then it takes a right turn and goes down into a little bit of a dip, and then back up to the green, surrounded by a whole pearl necklace of bunkers, right? Just a bunch of bunkers all around it, guarding it kind of front on the right, and the green's tucked around behind them on the right. So off the tee box, it's like you can hit it through the fairway, first of all, right? It's possible to hit through the fairway, which is junk, just done, trees and long grass and, drop. You're taking a drop. So what you need to do is you either need to like hit kind of a high fade around the corner, right? Kind of perfect because there's trees right also, so you can get caught up in those, and then you're punching out if you can even find it. So either that or you're laying, well, okay, so if you're hitting driver, that's what you got to do. You got to kind of thread it around that corner. Okay. And then if you do that successfully, you're still looking at a couple hundred yards at least back over this kind of dip down and up to a green surrounded, guarded by bunkers in the front and on the sides, and then trees and junk around behind it. And you're off of not a perfectly flat driving range lie, right? It's side hill, downhill, usually most of that fairway. So think about it. You're trying to hit like a 4-iron or a hybrid or a 3-wood or something from an awkward lie, even if you're in the middle of the fairway. And so it was like, that was one of the holes that stands out to me. It's like, what is the point of hitting driver here? You have to hit it absolutely perfect. And even if you do, it's not ideal for your second shot. So what if we just hit 3-wood or hybrid, or back then it was 5-wood or, whatever, knock it out there, a couple hundred yards, 220, 240, whatever. And then you're hitting an 8-iron or 7-iron down to the bottom of the hill to lay up, and then you're hitting a wedge up there, right? And it's like, it just didn't make sense. That was one of the things that kind of tipped me off to start thinking about this kind of thing, if that helps.
Yeah, that's an incredible example. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, digging into something else you touched upon is this pre-shot routine.
Yeah.
So many people, so many opinions, variations, and approaches. Whether you were talking to someone you were teaching or perhaps even describing your own, I'm curious, what light would you shed on like the priorities and purpose of a sound pre-shot routine?
Yep. Well, you mentioned making an emotional decision, right? Like having a bad hole, and so then you pull out driving and hit it as hard as you can to make quadruple eagle on the next hole to make back all those strokes, It's like, we get that way, right? That's how our subconscious mind works. It's like we're pissed off. Okay, so when I was trying to qualify for the Oregon State AM, I tried and failed twice, 2 years in a row, and that was mainly because I was kind of hanging in there and got to the 15th or 16th hole and blew up. Like I made a quad each year on those holes because of indecision off the tee, and then just, one bad thing after another, kind of letting it spiral, right? So, and then that would knock me out of contention. So the third year I went back to do it, and I was like thinking about how, what do I need to change in order to make this work? And I came up with a pre-shot route, actually a whole shot routine. And here's what it was. It was mostly not about the swing, mostly mental, emotional. Okay. So first step, 4 steps. Step 1, pick my target. That includes like, where am I going to hit it? What club am I going to hit? What kind of shot am I going to hit? Draw, fade, high, low, that type of thing. Okay. Target, setup. So I have a setup key that's been true for me forever, which is I got to get my shoulders aligned. I tend to line up my shoulders closed, and then everything dominoes from there, and I get inside on the takeaway and over the top and steep coming down, hit really bad shots. So I got to get my shoulders aligned and get like set up from there. So if I select my target, set up correctly, next is execute, hit the shot, get set up, let it fly. And then the most important step, step 4, was accept the outcome of that shot, no matter what it was. Topped it 4 feet, hit it in the creek, striped it down the middle, whatever. Immediately accept a shot mentally and emotionally, and then start the routine over for the next one. What am I going to do from here? So I was completely playing every shot in a silo of what is the best way to approach this shot. And I shot 75 and qualified. Oh
yeah,
it was awesome. Yeah. And it was great. I even double bogeyed number 17. It was just kind of a tough hole, and came back and birdied 18 to finish, So it really, I was so happy about that, because that approach really worked. And I try to use that approach now anytime I'm playing a round that I, care about.
I love that, because that description mirrors what I do personally and how I coach my athletes. Is that I call it the next shot mentality. I love your use of the word silo. Like the past, the present the past and the future don't matter. It's this next shot. And I love the emphasis that you included it even in the routine is acceptance, because whether you pipe one down the middle or you shank it in the woods, your next shot is the most important shot. So I even started toying around with some of my, let's call them more emotional golfers. I will help them reframe and how about passionate acceptance? You're going to have a lot of emotion.
You don't have to be happy about it.
Yeah, but accept it passionately. And even like sometimes with some of my finicky clients who are just really having a tough time because they care so deeply, it's like, okay, you get 10 seconds to feel how you want to feel about that shot, and then you have got to let the fucking thing go. So thrilled to hear you echo that. And I'm curious, as your career trajectory and your skill level continue to increase, what did you find to be the greatest challenge when playing tournament pressure-filled golf versus the more lackadaisical or recreational round with your buddies?
It's weird. I think that what happens, honestly, is you get in a little bit of fight or flight mode, and it's hard to access a lot of your memory and knowledge. So I even had, I've been playing a couple events, and the first one 3 weeks ago now I played, and I got out of sync, and I just had a really rough front nine, and I could not figure out what it was. And it was the simplest thing, it was the simplest thing. I was just getting a little too much on my front foot and like reverse pivoting almost, my swing was out of sync. I wasn't loading well. And as soon as I finally remembered that, I started to hit the ball okay. But it was just, it was like took way too long. It took most of the whole front nine to figure that out, And so swing, I don't know. I mean, it's important, I think, to just do it, to get out there and play and put yourself in situations that you're uncomfortable, because no matter how, it's like the Mike Tyson thing, I guess. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? It's hard to actually, you can't plan everything. You can't predict everything. You can't know everything that's going to happen. What experience is huge, because then you can start to draw on that when you're out there. And I have quite a bit of experience now, and even I struggled with that, a couple of weeks ago. So it's still, I don't know if I have great advice for that. You can have a few keys though. Like if you know the keys that help you make your best swings and play your best golf. And I don't want a lot of like mechanical swing thoughts, but like 2 or 3 keys to how you're going to approach even your swing is okay. Like for me, like I was saying, shoulder alignment, that's a big deal. Usually when I get that right, everything flows from there, and I wasn't really getting that right. I was kind of rushing through it and just setting up, without really paying close enough attention, and then not making good swings. So yeah, I think that would be my main thought there.
It's interesting, and I'm curious if this resonates with you, because I see it a lot, and I saw it yesterday on the tour. So today is, what is today? Today's May 13th. McIlroy just won that tournament this weekend. But what stands out to me that I noticed, and I'm sure you can relate to or observed as well, is that when we're in those pressure-filled moments, whether it's your first tournament, it's the club tournament, or it is the Sunday of a tournament, even if you have significant experience and you're near the top of the leaderboard, is that you slow down so much that you invite in opportunity for more mechanical swing focused thoughts rather than just letting your subconscious lead where you're in control. It's smooth and fluid. So like the example yesterday, and I wish I had the power, could find somebody to pull up a side by side, but Rory and Xander were in the final pairing yesterday. And it just became blatantly obvious between Thursday compared to the first few holes of Sunday and the back nine of Sunday. Xander's pre-shot routine kept growing like a second or two longer and longer and longer.
He's over the ball a lot.
He's over the ball.
Yeah,
He's thinking, and I can't assume what he's thinking about, but it seems like he's just thinking and thinking and thinking. And you see this real interesting moment where Rory bogeys, Xander eagles. There's a change. Rory responds with 3 eagles and a birdie in a row, and Xander finishes like even or 1 under the rest of the day and loses by 5 strokes. So I find, and I'm sure you'll have more to say, like in those pressure situations, you have to bring a level of trust in your prep, your routine, and decisiveness and commitment. Otherwise, you run the risk of inviting in overthinking.
100%. And was that not an incredible round by Rory? I think everybody's been waiting just to see that, you know, on a Sunday, because he's one of the most talented players you've ever seen. Right? I mean, and his swing is freaking beautiful.
Not to interrupt real quick, but they made a comment like Xander was averaging like 315 off the tee box, and he was still like 30 yards behind Rory.
Bombing it. I know. Oh, it's so great. Well, yeah. So this takes me back to the OG, I think, golf psychology, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Bob Rotella, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, right? Yeah. And I have either three or four chapters in that book highlighted. Just like if you're only going to skim this book, read these 3 things. And one of them is train it and trust it, right? So mentally being in training mode, practice mode, analytical, mechanical breakdown, like what's happening here, there, and everything in my swing. And then trusting mode, which is about being an athlete, seeing the target and reacting to it, right? Like the way a tennis player does, or a hitter hitting a baseball. It's like you take what you've disciplined, what you've trained and practiced into the live action. And then it's way more, just, it's not conscious thought. You can't think your way through a golf swing, but you do see that happening, right? When people get in pressure, when something starts to get a little off, our tendency is to revert back to training mode and thinking mechanically. And it's just, you cannot play your best golf in that mode. It's like, no matter how bad your swing feels that day, you're still going to play better if you think about the target and the type of shot you want to hit and just play like an athlete. Yeah. Right? Engage your mind and your body that way instead of trying to consciously think your way through it.
I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Scotty Scheffler was asked like how he deals with like first tee jitters, especially after winning a couple tournaments in a row. And like he more or less led with, I trust my preparation and routine. You do all of your swing modifications away from the course. When it's tournament day, you trust that whatever swing shows up that day, you're going to make the best of. So I love hearing you echo that. And if you could, reflecting back on your own journey, I guess I should have clarified in the beginning, where's your handicap at today?
Right now, I just moved back under 5, like 4.7 or something. I've been as low as, scratch or near back in the day when I was playing a bunch, practicing a lot, But, so currently it's on a nice little downward trend. It got up around 6 and it's now in the 4s. So
right on.
Yeah.
Right on. So looking back when you were shooting high 80s, low 90s, what was the biggest breakthrough or difference maker for you that propelled you to becoming someone who shoots consistently in the 70s?
I started practicing my short game. And that's a very cliche thing to say, but there's a couple things to think about with that help me like it better, right? One is just understanding that that's half your shots are,
more
from inside 100 yards, at least half. And then, really more like 2/3 probably. And then here's the idea that I think people might like. It's that practicing chips and pitches, helps your full swing in a couple different ways. Whereas beating balls on the range does nothing for your short game. Okay. So a couple reasons for that. One reason is just physically, you're still impacting the ball, right? So you're moving the club through the hitting zone and feeling the interaction of club with the ground and the ball, even if you're only hitting it 10 yards. So like I tell people, if they only have 10 minutes to warm up before a round, just go hit chip shots, chips and pitches rather than going to the range. It's going to serve you much better, because once you got the feeling of where impact is and where the ground is and, you know, all of that good stuff, you can take that into progressively a longer swing, you know? So there's the physical benefit of it. And then there's the mental, because when you start feeling confident about being able to get up and down, or if I hit it in the bunker, it's not really that big of a deal unless I'm, you know, buried 3 feet deep or whatever. Or if I hit in the rough or hit it, you know, and I have that 40-yard pitch shot, like I actually kind of know what to do with that now. When you have that in the back of your mind, it makes you more relaxed when you're hitting the 150-yard 8-iron into the green. Yeah. So you're more likely to hit better shots.
Love that. Yeah. Actually, it's wonderful timing that you shared that example from Dr. Bob Rotella. In Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, he talks about this example where he asks a client of his to review his scorecard. The dude shoots a 73 and they're able to break it down where, like, and I'm pulling numbers out of my ass here, but like 45 or 50 of the shots were not a drive or off the tee box. They were all within 120 yards. You've got to find a way to fall in love or gamify the short game. And that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. That's the same thing I experienced caddying for people. You know, you asked about the mental approach there, and a lot of it is honestly just physical. It's like most guys could get it around the green in 2. It's like they couldn't do anything with it from there. That was the big problem.
Looking back on your career, what is something from specifically through the lens of the mental game that you wish you knew 5 or 10 years ago that would have expedited your journey to having a sub-5 handicap?
It's almost deeper than mental. It's like an identity issue.
Tell me more.
So like I used to be very wrapped up in my performance, and it would affect how I felt about myself and my life, you know? And it wasn't just in golf, but it really came out in golf. And so if I was struggling, I didn't realize it consciously, but it was making me feel like unworthy or kind of less than, you know? And when I played great, I felt great. When I played crappy, I felt crappy, beyond just like, oh, that was excuse me, oh, that was a bad day, rough day on the golf course, whatever. It was like, it affected me more deeply. So then it would cause me to do that whole thing that we were talking about a few minutes ago about trying to make up the last bad hole with the next drive, you know, and that just sort of tends to compound the problem. So the mental thing, whether, you know, you're going as deep as like my personal self-worth and identity, or if you're just talking about like being able to let a bad shot or a bad hole go, it is that whole idea of, you know, what just happened doesn't have to affect what's about to happen. And if you can let that go, you know, and play in the present, that's going to be your biggest advantage, I think, mentally.
I think that's incredible, because I can relate personally and with those I coach professionally. This was especially potent in when I was playing poker professionally. In my early days would, you know, I could play my best poker and lose quite a few grand in a few hours. And I had to learn to be okay with that, because some days it would come home and I would take it out on my wife. I would be a bear and a burden to be around. It would just affect my mood for not hours, but days. And I even remember, this is not, without going too far off a tangent, I'm a big Washington Redskins football fan. So like when I was in high school, thank you. I know. In high school, it would ruin like half my week when the Redskins lost, because I just couldn't let it go. But as I've matured and surrounded myself with the tools and mentors, like I can go shoot whatever on the golf course, anything can happen on the poker table, and I can let it go. I can flip the switch and be present in my family and my personal life. And that's why I think it's so crucial. I teach this all the time. Some type of post-round routine, 2 to 5 minutes in the car by yourself, can go a long way to help you emotionally off gas. So you can regain your composure and show up with a smile, whether you shot an 88 or a 68.
Yeah, that's totally true, man. It is. It's so like these things that we do, they affect us much more deeply than we usually think about or realize. And our culture hasn't, I mean, lately it's we're getting more aware of it, but for a long time it's been like not connected or hard to connect. But we attach our identity to a lot of external things, you know. And then like you're saying, the Redskins, I mean, I'm in Kansas City, Chiefs Kingdom, bro. It's like, it's, you know, it's the pinnacle of fan being attached to the outcome of a team and how they play, and you see it all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're golfing, you're teaching, you're coaching. Like, where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, and to also follow your golf journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't been really public about my golf journey, but I mean, maybe I should start. I have been doing business, like small business coaching and consulting. So I've just kind of been operating under my own little label. I've got a brand and a team that we're in the works, getting ready to release. But for now, it's easy to find me under Matt Doud, Doud, then COO. It's like Chief Operating Officer. That's the type of work I do. MattDoudCOO.com is an easy place to get me, or I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, under myself. Those are probably the easiest places to find me right now. Yeah, and happy to chat golf or business or whatever. I've even been thinking about doing like an executive, like golf/business coaching type of thing. I remember being at Pebble and having these pretty like big time CEOs and business guys and gals come through. And when they would struggle at golf, it was like they were a whole different person. Like, they're super successful, super confident, in their work world in that arena, but they get on the golf course and have a hard time. And it was kind of what we were talking about. And I think an identity thing, but anyway.
You should explore that. Here's your gentle nudge and reminder. There's such a great opportunity.
There's something to it.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I will include all of those in the show notes, easy access links. Go follow, connect with Matt. He's a wealth of knowledge, both golf wise and entrepreneurship wise. And Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, Paul, thanks for having me, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you listening, thank you for being here. I sincerely hope you found immense value. If you know somebody, a fellow golfer, who would find a lot of insight and wisdom in what Matt shared, all of his years caddying, all of his incredible golf experience and success himself, share this episode with him or her. And if you haven't done so already, it would mean a lot to me if you took 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful time playing this weekend, and I'll catch you in the next episode.